Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland, with me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast. My name is Kelly, I'm your host, and today we are talking about a trend that is currently reshaping the wedding industry in Ireland. And I'm particularly excited about it because, normally when it comes to trends, I always say to people, take it with a pinch of salt. Classic is always better. Some trends end up becoming classic, like the white wedding dress. It was a trend and now it's considered classic. But other trends end up looking really dated. And, if you think about poofy sleeves that our parents wore, when they got married, you can find things that are a little dated. But this wedding trend, I'm excited about it because it's reshaping the Irish wedding industry in a way that is actually super helpful for couples as well as their guests. And that trend is the weekday wedding. So I'm a big fan of the weekday wedding, and I'm going to walk you through why I love it, how you can do it, and I'm going to put your mind at ease about a couple of things that maybe you have in your head. You may be thinking, is it going to feel as special? I'm going to put your mind at ease. So if you're toying with the idea of a weekday wedding, or if you haven't yet set your date and you're just totally open, maybe you've had a date in mind and it was a Saturday, maybe it's a Saturday in the summer and you've been trying to find a venue, or you've been trying to book your photographer or your other key wedding suppliers and you're just finding that no one's available. I'm going to tell you that a weekday wedding could be the answer to some of your problems. So why don't we get started? I'm going to tell you why weekday weddings have become more and more popular over the last few years in particular. So the first thing, I've alluded to this, it's the availability. I just love that Ireland has so many amazing wedding venues and suppliers all over the country, so much so that they are in demand. You've got your countryside manors, you've got your seaside hotels, you've got your historic castles, so many amazing venue types to choose from, but they book up really, really fast. And you've probably already encountered this already. Those weekend slots, they go quickly, especially over the summer. So some couples might be waiting 2 to 3 years for a Saturday wedding. And if you want to get married, quicker than 2 to 3 years' time, you may want to consider a Wednesday or a Thursday. And suddenly your dream wedding venue becomes available and you don't need to wait until 2027, but you could be getting married next summer. So that's the first thing, is the availability side of things. The second thing is the cost. Now, this is a huge win if you ask me. There's so many wedding venues and suppliers that have different prices based on their off-peak and peak rates. So we've spoken about this on the podcast before in the context of summer weddings compared to winter weddings. So if you're getting married over the winter months, you can often find that your suppliers will have discounted rates. And the same is true for those weekday weddings as well. And now I'm not just talking small discounts here. Some of these wedding suppliers can offer 10 to 30% less for a weekday wedding. So if you put that into numbers, depending on who the supplier is, if it's something like a luxurious wedding venue, you might be saving something like 3,000 to 5,000 euros or more simply by choosing another wedding date. Now, of course, it does depend on the supplier. It depends on their unique packages. It depends on their pricing, all of that kind of thing. So I'm not making promises for everybody, but it's definitely worth investigating that if you have a dream venue or supplier and they're not available on a Saturday, but they are available midweek, They may have a really, really sweet discount for you. And that money that you save could be put towards your honeymoon. It could be put towards your home or some other kind of little luxury that you really, really want, but you just didn't think you could afford to have it at your wedding day. And then the third thing that is so good about these weekday weddings is that actually there's been a shift in lifestyle. Now think about it this way. Ever since COVID happened, lots of people have been working from home. Flexible working has become so much more normal. You find that the flexibility that people have isn't contained into the weekend days. So a lot of people are able to shift their working days around. They can shift their hours around to still get things done that normally get done during the week, except they don't have to apply for annual leave to do that. Of course, this isn't true for every profession, but there are loads of people across the country who are able to rearrange their schedules in such a way that actually asking somebody to take 1 or 2 days off in the week isn't really as much of a big deal as it used to be before COVID, when people were in offices Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So a lot of your guests may be so much more willing to shift things around to attend a weekday wedding because it's so much easier for them to do so. So let's summarize the first part of this episode. Weekday weddings are on the rise because availability of suppliers is so much better. The cost, you could be saving so much more money by shifting your day from a Saturday to a Wednesday, for example. And then that shift in lifestyle just makes it so much easier for your guests to actually make the change to be at a wedding in the middle of the week as opposed to a weekend. So now you might be thinking, I'm actually tempted to give this a try, but how does this actually work in practice? So let's talk about the logistics of a midweek wedding. Here are a couple of things that you should consider, which would really help you to create a wedding that is still special, it's still meaningful, and your guests know what they need to know when they need to know it. So firstly, you want to give guests as much notice as possible. So I would say send your save the dates earlier than usual. So usually it would be something like 8 to 12 months before the big day, you send a save the date. And then, a couple of months before the big day, you get the formal invitation out. And that includes RSVP details and all of that kind of thing. But when it comes to changing things a little bit, like moving from a Saturday to a Wednesday or a Thursday wedding, give your guests as much notice as possible. It might be a little bit more tricky for people to take time off work if they need to. It might be a little bit more tricky to organize childcare or to book accommodation if travel is required. And so giving people more time just means that there's a higher chance that more of your guests can be at your wedding. So I recommend earlier than usual. So if you would normally say 8 to 12 months before the day you send your save the dates, do so a couple of months earlier than that. So if you're thinking, I'm planning my wedding now for summer next year, get the save the dates out now. What your guests need to know is the day and the location. It doesn't have to be the specific venue that you're getting married at, but it could just be the area that you're getting married in, so they know if there's travel involved or if they need to arrange accommodation or anything like that. Another logistical thing to think about is you want to turn this into a celebration and not just a day. So it could be like a midweek escape where it's a couple of days, a dinner the night before. It could be a morning after brunch. It could be some kind of a group trip to a local attraction. There's so many things that you can do to make the time that people take off from work something that feels like a mini holiday. And it doesn't mean that you need to plan a whole lot of events, but it could just be really easy to organize gatherings. If you're saying we're all going to go for a walk on the beach, for example, or we're going to have brunch at this nearby restaurant, everyone cover for themselves, that kind of thing. It doesn't have to mean that you're planning 3 or 4 events. You plan the wedding, you arrange a couple of things on either side, and you just say, whoever wants to be part of this, come along, we're just going to have some fun together. It also means that anybody who's traveling to your wedding from another country or from another part of the country, maybe it's people you don't see very often, you actually get more time with them, because instead of trying to see them on the wedding day with perhaps 100 or 200 other guests there as well, instead of that, it means that in some of these other events, as part of your midweek escape, it means you can catch up with people and have some more one-on-one time, quality conversations with some guests who have really made the effort to travel to be at your big day. Speaking of those guests, you want to support your out-of-town guests. So it could be, just really considering that weekday travel might be a little bit trickier. For some people, it's actually easier, less traffic, less competition to get accommodation and, flights and everything organized because fewer people travel during the week. But to keep in mind your out-of-town guests, it might be things like booking a hotel block. It could be arranging shuttles for people, or even contributing towards the accommodation costs to make it so much easier for people to be able to come out and celebrate with you. And then finally, another logistical thing to think about is your suppliers. So you want to make sure that your suppliers know everything that they need to know. So of course, we've spoken about the fact that many suppliers have more availability during the week and that they offer lower rates, but you want to make sure that you are on top of things like weekday policies. You want to make sure that the suppliers that you are working with are fully staffed, they're fully available, and what you might be picturing in your head is the same, whether it's a Saturday wedding or a midweek wedding. So just have those conversations to make sure that logistically you know exactly what you're paying for, what you're getting. Make sure that the suppliers know what you have in mind so that they can give you the wedding of your dreams. Okay, let's have a talk about the social side before we wrap up this episode. Now, the elephant in the room, you might have this thought in your mind, which is, what will people think? Maybe there's a stigma in certain circles that weddings have to be on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday. And you might be hearing things like, but, is it going to feel less special? This is the truth, okay? Your wedding is going to be as special as you make it. It's going to be full of love. It's going to be full of laughter. Your favorite people are going to be there. And you know what? It doesn't actually matter if it's a Tuesday or a Saturday because the right people are there. All the festivities are designed to celebrate your relationship, to exchange vows in front of your loved ones. And it doesn't actually matter what day you do it on. You've got to make it as special as you can make it. When somebody is sitting in the room, they're not going to be thinking, but it's a Tuesday, because for them, they're there to celebrate you and your relationship. With that in mind, just be mindful of anybody who might have a tight schedule. So parents of young children, it could be shift workers or anyone traveling from afar. So if a weekday doesn't work for some of your key loved ones, then you may want to rethink things or make extra arrangements for them, like arranging childcare and transportation and that kind of thing to really support those people so they're able to be part of your day. Overall, more and more people are saying that weekday weddings are more intimate, more relaxed, and actually more personal. So instead of thinking, is this day going to be less special? You may find that it's actually more special by doing it midweek. And so here's the recap for why midweek weddings are awesome. There's more availability, lower costs, and the changing habits that your guests are experiencing might make it easier for them to actually be part of a midweek wedding. Here's how you can make it work. Plan early, communicate early, and treat it a little bit like a mini holiday. And finally, will it be special? Of course, because what makes your wedding day isn't the day of the week. It's the reason that everyone is coming together. And that is you, it's your relationship, and it is celebrating together. Well, thank you for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. For more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, visit weddingsonline.ie.